and the Rikers Public Memory Project extensively. I spent 4 months on Rikers Island, incarcerated before I went to an upstate prison in New York, and I've also been incarcerated since I was a teenager in Illinois, so I'm from the Midwest. So really happy to have you all here tonight. And we are grateful to share the narrative threads. It's navigating stories of pain and power. That's the name of this panel. And we will learn from and reflect on the insights, experiences, and expertise of 6 really amazing panelists who we're going to introduce in a few. So this panel is an opportunity to build community together in real time for 3 community archives. One is the Rikers Island Public Memory Project, another is the Texas After Violence Project, and the third is the Visiting Room Project. And all of these transcend across time and space. We are honored for these panelists to share their brilliance, to discuss how lived experience becomes lived expertise, better understand the value of what is meant to share your story, and much more. This event is an invitation to listen, to learn, and to weave together narrative threads. And before I introduce the dance performance, I want to acknowledge that we are in New York City and we are on the occupied ancestral territory of the Canarsie, Lenape, and Wappinger people. We want to give respect to the various indigenous people and nations who live in the land we now call Manhattan, regardless of federal or state recognition. And we understand that this list is not exhaustive, and there are names and nations of people that history is still working to recover and include. So we will be, for a dance performance, introducing Flex Dance. This program was established in 2014. It's an arts education nonprofit that fosters positive growth among young people in difficult circumstances. They employ renowned dancers from local communities to develop routines with students, promoting self-esteem, cooperation, and communication. And they seek to transform physical energy into positive nonverbal self-expression that offers an alternative to conflict. Franklin Dawes, whose dance name is Ace, is 28 years old, born and raised from Brooklyn, New York. Woo woo! He has been dancing for 14 years and dances to inspire others, including youth and upcoming dancers. And head teacher Joanna Cheryl Sutherland, by the way, your middle name is spelled so beautifully, known as Smiley Smiles, is from Brooklyn, New York as well, and she is a mother, dancer, and a hairstylist. Smiley is known for gliding. She loves all styles of flexing and focuses her teaching on body movement. Flexen is more than just dance, she says. It is a savior for some of us. It keeps some of us off the streets and out of trouble. Flex teaches you how to become social and how to express yourself in other ways. Flexen is life. So give it up for Flexen while they perform. Let's give it up for Flex Dance. Woo! That was so amazing. Thank you, Ace and Smiley Smiles. So now we are going to bring up 2 panelists at a time, and then those panelists are going to introduce each of the archive programs, and then we will start the actual panel with the questions. So first up, and as I introduce you, please come up here. Helen Skipper Skip, as she prefers to be called, has been working in peer support since her final release from years of multiple incarcerations and system involvement in 2007. She is the executive director of the New York City Justice Peers Initiative, a Beyond the Bars 2021 fellow, an honors graduate at St. Francis College. She is currently pursuing a Master of Arts and moving towards a PhD in criminology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And her criminology work includes acceptance into the American Society of Criminology, where she has presented her original scholarship at their annual meeting for the last 2 years. She is a board member and participant of College and Community Fellowship, who works with justice-involved women through community support and access to higher education. Skip has been a part of the Rikers Island Public Memory Project community since 2023, where she has contributed an oral history interview, served as a directly impacted design advisor for RPMP's mobile exhibit, and most recently has been accepted to the inaugural Rikers Narrative Change Community Fellowship, where she will produce a documentary theater project. Give it up for Skip! And then our next panelist I want to introduce is Tamika Graham of Staten Island. She's a youth development specialist for Rising Ground at New Bridge Non-Secure Detention for System-Involved Boys. Since her own incarceration as a youth and adult, she has been a leader advocating for the dignity of system-impacted people in New York. Tamika has devoted herself to changing her local community and the nation by advocating for the end to mass incarceration and ending homelessness as well. A passionate advocate for youth, Tamika strongly believes youth represent our future. She is also a zealous advocate for access to higher education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people, because she knows that education is a gateway to social and economic mobility. Tamika is an alum of the Bard Prison Initiative, class of 2017, and has worked as a canvasser for Just Leadership USA. She has also contributed writing to the Queens Daily Eagle, and with the Rikers Island Public Memory Project, Tamika has not only contributed her own oral story, but also facilitated interviews with 20 other people who have wanted to share their Rikers stories. Welcome, Tamika. And they're going to describe the Rikers Island Public Memory Project.
Hey, I just want to thank everybody for coming up. And let's give it up for Flex Dance. Dude, is your arms broken? I'm just saying, is your arms broken? They still move? You still got full movement? Because, yeah, that looked kind of crooked there. But that was great. So my name is Skip. As I've been introduced, I am a directly impacted advisor and also a fellow. And in about 6 months or so, I'll be doing a minimalist monologue type documentary of some of the narratives on the Rikers Public Memory Project. But I just want to just give you a synopsis of what we do and how we do it and why this is so important. The Rikers Public Memory Project collects and makes visible the stories of people most impacted by Rikers Island. We mobilize action towards repairing its generational harms and interrupting the dehumanizing narratives about people harmed by Rikers. Our vision is a New York City and society that has chosen a culture of care over punishment. Now, what a statement is that?
Our work is organized around 3 pillars. Remember, with over 125 recorded interviews, the RPMP Oral History Collection is the largest public archive of narratives on the legacy of Rikers Island. The second one is repair. The multimedia mobile exhibit brings art, narrative, and community healing workshops to neighborhoods most impacted by Rikers. The mobile exhibit will not simply be an art display, it will be a living testament to the power of community engagement and shared stories. Each piece is a chapter in the larger narratives of Rikers, telling stories that demand to be heard, acknowledged, and remembered. The third one is redress. Our reparative justice initiative documents the public health impact of Rikers and advocate for the reinvestment in harmed communities.
And before we give it up, I just need for y'all to give a hand to our fearless leaders who put us together and put us on this path. Please give it up for Piper, for Andrea, and for Regina in the back, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Oh.
So next, we will be bringing up Idoja Robinson, who was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was raised by her mother and father while also having close, loving relationships with her grandmother's grandfather and siblings. Miss Robinson is the mother of 4 children and grandmother of 13 grandchildren. Miss Robinson was incarcerated at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. Oh, come right here, because we're going to have you introduce the visiting room. At the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women for 24 and a half years. A survivor of intimate partner violence herself, she committed herself to educating others about the indigenous nature of domestic violence. She also trained in culinary arts and worked as a head cook, a skill that she began learning from one of her grandmothers around the age of 12. In addition to implementing her skills as a cosmetologist, Ms. Robinson volunteered with the children's program offered through the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women as well. Ms. Robinson won her freedom in November 6, 2022. That's right, give it up. Today, she lives in Harvey, Louisiana with her beautiful family. She continues to enjoy showing her love for those around her through cooking, particularly her red beans and rice or cabbage. We all want to eat some of your food too, okay? And next, I'm bringing up Sandra Starr, who was born in Monroe, Louisiana, raised by her mother and stepfather. Starr is the eldest of 4 children. She is also the mother of 2 children and a grandmother to 7 grandbabies. Starr was incarcerated at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women for 27 years. While there, she mentored young people around issues of domestic violence, mothering while incarcerated, healthy coping mechanisms, and the importance of maintaining a healthy self-esteem. In her capacity as a mentor, Starr worked with mentees in a workforce drug program for rehabilitation. Starr also worked in the library as counsel and peer minister for others who were incarcerated in the prison. She earned her bachelor's degree from the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary in 2016. And additionally, Starr pioneered her own program called Worship Arts Ministry, a program that allows people entering the prison to have freedom of expressions through mediums such as acting, dance, and music. Starr won her freedom July 7, 2020. Today, Starr works as an administrator for 12 Key Ministry and as a team leader at Blue Moon Estate Sales. She currently resides in Baton Rouge with her husband and their baby girl, a pit bull named Jay, which I love. So I'm going to hand it over to them so they can introduce their program.
How y'all doing this evening? Okay, the Visitor Room Project is a digital experience that invites the public to sit face-to-face with people serving life without possibility of parole to hear them tell their stories in their own words. The site is only collective of its kind. We're currently publicly available over 100 film interviews with people serving life without parole.
The Visitor Room Project aims to launch its forthcoming collection of interviews recorded at LCIW for women in 2025 for stories like us. Other women and gender-expanded people experiences are overlooked, making this collection of stories particularly significant and important. This is a living project that didn't conclude when the last interview was filmed. Thank you.
And finally, we have 2 panelists to introduce the Texas After Violence Project. Lavina, with the journey marked by resilience and dedication, Lavina is a beacon of hope and transformation. Rising from the depths of adversity, her story is a testament to the power of redemption and the potential for positive change. 10 years ago, she emerged from the confines of prison with a determination to carve a new path, one defined by compassion, service, and advocacy. Fueled by her own experiences, she embarked on the remarkable journey of self-discovery and professional growth. Today, as a licensed chemical dependency counselor and holder of a Master of Social Work degree, she serves as a program manager at the Houston Recovery Center. In this role, she channels her passion for helping others into tangible support for those grappling with homelessness, addiction, and the far-reaching impacts of the criminal justice system. With unwavering empathy and an unwavering commitment to change lives, Sorry about that. She is a guiding force in her community. Her work is not just a profession, but a calling, a testament to her belief in the inherent worth and potential of every individual. Through her advocacy, counseling, and leadership, she continues to inspire others to overcome obstacles, embrace transformation, and build brighter futures. Her story is a reminder that no challenge is insurmountable and that every journey towards healing begins with a single step of courage. Some of her favorite are freshly baked cookies and banana-flavored now and later candy. And then our final panelist is Jennifer. I want to bring her on up. Jennifer Toon is the project director of Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, where she uses her 27 years of system involvement as both a juvenile and an adult to help end the incarceration and systemic devaluing of girls and women in the Texas criminal legal system. Jennifer also serves as the advocacy fellow for the Texas After Violence Project and has studied journalism at the University of Houston. As a freelance writer, she has published work with The Guardian, the Marshall Project, and the Texas Observer. She is also the co-host of On the Rec Yard Women's Prison podcast, so y'all better be listening to that.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Jennifer believes that narrative lies at the heart of effective advocacy and aspires to use her lived experience to bring attention to the often forgotten voices of other system-impacted women, youth, and people with disabilities. She lives in Austin with her cat, Taylor, who embodies the mischievous energy of Taylor Swift. And I'll let you all introduce.
Absolutely, thank you. Texas After Violence Project is a public memory archive that fosters deeper understandings of the impacts of state violence. Our mission is to help build power with directly impacted communities, centering their dignity, agency, and expertise to cultivate restorative and transformative justice. Our vision is a culture of care that addresses and prevents violence without compounding harm and trauma. A culture that centers the needs of victims, survivors, and their loved ones through community-based accountability and healing, where family and community relationships that have been torn apart by the carceral state have been mended. Thank you.
And just after reading the bios, you can see why we chose power and pain, right? Oh, that's okay, as I lost my shoe. If you want to, so let me go down here then. No worries. I'm going to leave this one for you, guys. So we're going to jump right in, because we definitely want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A and that this is like really a conversation, right? So I'm going to open the first question up, and we don't have to all answer, right? But we can popcorn around. Whoever wants to take this one can. But why is it important for directly impacted voices to be amplified, heard, and heeded? And whoever wants to jump in, jump right in.
I'll jump in. It's important because the people who are most impacted, the firsthand, we have to be a part of the solution. It is almost as if someone else is going to direct your life and they have no experience at all in your shoes. You know, they can't do that. It's not going to be successful. So when we're addressing things of the criminal system, we have to involve people who are directly impacted in those conversations of change in order to have real change. We can't be left out of that conversation. How will other people really know the solution? They may hear of the problem, but it's a different understanding that we bring to the table because of our lived experience, and that's valuable. So invaluable, priceless.
And just to piggyback off of Lavina, you got to think about it. Like she said, the people that's closest to the problem is what's closest to the solution. So those of us that have been inside, we're giving our stories to, one, empower those of us that are behind us, that are in there, right? Because they need to see that there is life after prison, there's life after jail. You can become something, you can do something differently. Also, our stories need to be heard because we're in there, we're the ones that made a mistake, but we can see what mistakes the system are making with helping us to no longer make these mistakes, right? It's supposed to be about rehabilitation and reform, but it's not really happening. So you need to hear the voices of the inside so that we can, one, start with healing, and two, start with ending the mass incarceration, ending people going to, these places are detention centers. People are, they haven't even been found guilty of anything. but we're being traumatized from the door, right? People are going in there for petty crime or serious crime. They're just being detained, not found guilty yet, but some people are losing their lives. People are dying because of the treatment that's going on in there and stuff, right? So the stories need to get out there because society has one idea of that person that was locked up. They don't think about what may have gotten them there, right? There's life things that's taking place. Some people commit crimes to help with life, with feeding their babies or trying to pay their rent or something like that, right? And instead, we think everybody that's behind bars are ruthless animals, monsters that's out there hurting people, trying to kill people and stuff. And that's not really the case. Like, there's human beings behind the walls. So that's why it's important for those of us that were in those situations to come out and be able to tell our stories.
Well, I think that some voices will I'm using myself as a domestic violence case. It's labeled as a silent issue. And so many people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to admit it. And I was one. I realized later on that I was a victim. And it's so important for me today to say that I'm a survivor. And whatever it takes, my story to help someone else open up and not be silent and to be heard. Because everyone, no matter what situation, what case, wants to be heard. And I think that it's very important.
I also wanted to address this from an academic point of view. We've all heard about the principle of Sankofa, which is an African proverb. And it is literally a bird that is flying forward, but its head is faced backward because it's looking back from where it came. As we enter or strive to push into a period of transformation, of reformation, as we seek to redress and adjust this system that we already know is broken, we cannot move forward without looking back at where we came from and what happened while we were there. Those of us who are directly impacted, and we are directly impacted, but we also use our lived experience as professional lived expertise. We are the ones with the inside knowledge of what happened and what went wrong. We are the ones with the inside knowledge of what we should move away from. And again, we can't fix what's broken as we move forward without looking what we did and what we didn't do. And I'm going to leave it at that because y'all know I can talk.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to clarify, too, when Idoja was speaking a little bit, she was talking about domestic violence. There's many, many women that are incarcerated across the United States who have experienced domestic violence, and because they finally did something about it, they are now incarcerated because they harmed their abuser, right? So we really need to look at, when it comes to women, there's very, very specific reasons why we're incarcerated. Often it's poverty-related, drug-related, or, as she was describing, domestic violence-related. So that's something to really be aware of. And also, I think it's really important to note, because we are being live screened, that it is important for our voices to be heard in these community settings, but it is also just as important for our voices to be heard through philanthropy and for our voices to be heard with policy and advocacy and legislation. So we need the funders and the elected officials out here agreeing with this as well and investing in people who are directly impacted. So next, we have 6 women sitting with us on this panel today. Why is it important to make spaces specifically for women, femmes, and gender-expansive people to share their stories of incarceration?
Well, from the beginning of time, we know that the prison system was pretty much made for men. So everything dealing with incarceration, reentry, and anything in between that is all for the men. Even the facilities were set up, they have to, the facilities aren't fully geared to hold women. They're not fully geared to hold kids. But women get left out of the equation like so much, right? From the beginning of time, we as a race, as a being, women have always left out of the equation. We fall behind men regardless of what it is, wherever it is, we're at the bottom of the barrel. And when it comes to this prison system, when it comes to this incarceration system, it's the same thing. When it comes to programming, there's nothing there for women. There's nothing to accommodate the trauma that women are receiving. A lot of us have been abused by males in our families, right? We're abused by those that are close to us, our fathers, our uncles, our brothers, our cousins, and then, and as domestic violence, right? And then we go behind the wall and we're there facing more abuse and trauma for more men, right? And when we get in there, we're told that we're catty and we're emotional, but nobody realizes that we're dealing with real life stuff. Some of us are mothers, and we left our children. We don't know what's going on with them because we're here. Some of us are the only people in the household. Maybe the father's already in jail. Especially if it comes from a black and brown population, most of the dads are already behind the wall. But they always leave the women out of the equation, right? We go through so much. There's no housing for us when we come out. There's no workshops inside of the jail to help you find out why you're feeling the way you felt after you've been abused, right? Most people, when they're abused, they blame themselves. The first thing I did was I blamed myself, and I was a little kid who was sleeping. I didn't know what was happening to me. But now I'm sitting behind this wall so the first time I went to Rikers, I was 16 years old, and I was sitting there because a 43-year-old man thought I was old enough and my body was developed enough for him to want to touch me. I'm not developed now, so I don't know how developed I was at that time, but he felt like he would want to touch me. And when I got arrested because I protected myself, and I'm sitting on Rikers Island at 16 years old, I'm listening to this man who's calling me all types of names and stuff, and the only thing I can think of is, oh my God, he's gonna do the same thing to me. So now, what do? I'm an adolescent on Rikers Island, and now I pretty much am trying to find out ways to get away from this man or maybe harm this man, right? Because these are the things that's going through my mind because I've already been traumatized. So you put girls, young women, you put women, and you take us from our families, you take us from the kids, you lock us up, you throw away the key, and then we're left in there with all these emotions, with all these traumas, with all these problems, all these issues, and no type of place to be able to find ways to cope with it. There's no way to find a way to work through it. There's just nothing there, and then they send us back into the world, and here we are, still broken, right? So we need these conversations because we're all the same. We're all the same. We all go through stuff, and we're all left out of the equation. Whether you're behind walls or you're not, we're still left out of the conversation. When it comes to the kids in school and stuff, right? Most of the time they're looking for the father, right? It's, oh, well, where's the dad at? Nobody thinks, well, what's the mother going through? You know, while the dad is not here or anything, right? So it's the same thing in the jail system. We're just completely left out as if we are not there. So yeah, granted, the world wasn't ready for an influx of women to be going to jail. So what? There's a lot of things that we're not ready for, but we've been going to jail since the 80s. We're in 2024. There still, to this day, are not any type of programs that are really set in play inside of these detention centers and inside of these prisons that help a woman to get through anything. And it's the same in the men's facility, but there's so many options and opportunities for them. We don't have the same when we get home.
And I want to piggyback on that from an academic point. Some carceral scholars believe that we are past the period of mass incarceration, yet women are the highest rate of those who are incarcerated at this very point in time. Women are incarcerated at a rate of almost 500,000 a year. But yet we have these facilities and institutions that were not built for women, that were built for men. When I do trainings about the incarceration experience, I always start my trainings with the caveat that everyone experiences incarceration differently. Women experience it differently from men, who experience it differently from youth, who experience it differently from the LGBTQ, from the indigenous, from someone who has immigration concerns. We need to move to a more trauma-responsive culturally and gender responsive system of care, if we must have a system. And I'm not really going to get into that because that is like 3 panels. I'm not going to get into that. But the one thing I will say is that women create communities wherever they go. So we go into these systems and we create whole families. I've had mothers, I've had fathers, I've had grandfathers, I've had grandmas, I have aunties, I have brothers and sisters. And one thing I realized is that as I aged in the system, because I started as an adolescent, but as I aged in the system, when someone started calling me Uncle Skipper, I knew it was time for me to go, because you will not call me Grandpa Skip up in that place. But this is how we make it through the traumatization, by building these communities, by building a de facto family that we have left behind. And we leave everything behind. Women also come with a whole lot more issues than men do, because now you got to look at child care. You got to look at the impacts on family. You got to look at the impacts on custody arrangements. Mama locked up, daddy in jail. Who got the kids? Grandma, who's using and can't handle them. And where did kids go? Into the foster care system. So as we transform and reform and hell, even do away with it, with deflection and diversion, it needs to be culturally responsive and gender responsive. So you want places where women can have conducive visits with their children. You know, women need to have a chance to bond. They need to have a chance to rekindle the permanent biological families that they have left behind.
Well, down south in Louisiana, you know, at LCIW is the only maximum security prison they have. And we was overlooked at all things. It was the men first. Okay, I became incarcerated in '98, you know, and I felt that I could get help. And I went to the library, filed all kind of paperwork, wrote them in prison. I see they got all the paperwork I need, couldn't get no help, you know, but just like Skip said, who was there for us? Nobody. You know, in 2022, Governor Edwards came to the prison. Now, they got 1,000 and something women at LCIW. Everybody filing for clemency. Ain't nobody going to the board. Men going to the board and making it. But in 2023, when Bill Edwards came to the prison, you know, and I cooked for him, and he sit down and he talked to us. And we asked, why none of the women clemency is getting signed? His response was, I never seen no paperwork. So, you know, that made us feel much hurter. For him to just say that wasn't no paperwork on his desk for a woman. But he promised us, when I go back to my office, I'ma look. And he did good with his promises. Because 2 weeks later, they was going to the board and they was making it. We was like a forgotten person, you know, and I've been incarcerated for 24 and a half years. And from day one, I kept saying, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I'm saying this to myself, I'm innocent. But being in prison with a life sentence, you don't have nobody to believe in you. So, you know, you got to hold on to faith. All your hopes and dreams may be gone. Then you telling your kids, Mama coming home. Mama coming home. And they like, yeah, right. You got family members forgetting you in prison. You know, we need help. You know, we got a voice now. You know, we could open up. It's more of us out there that could speak on the education that y'all need to help us, to help the ones that's inside. And it's really hurtful because I left a lot of other friends in there. And some of them mentally ill and need help. You know, and we need help. And thank the Lord for the Visiting Room Project, because Without them, I think we'll still be in there. And from day one, no one heard my story, no one. The courts thought I was lying. That's why I got a life sentence. No one heard my story. And Marcus, I didn't trust no one. And Marcus sit down and he like eased and talked to me. And I opened up. And when I opened up, it was like a flood. And someone finally heard me and they helped me.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback a little bit. I'm another one that was in with Adosha. We kind of like it's like we grew up in prison together.
Yeah.
And that's sad. We're like sisters, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So it said, how did sharing my story on my own terms help shift narratives? Okay, so I didn't even, like I said, I didn't even know I was a victim. And we had groups in Louisiana, but they mocked the groups. It was like the beat 'em up group, you know. And I was like, let me go in here and just be nosy and see, still not knowing that I am a victim. And I never acknowledged that I had life because I just couldn't see myself dying in prison. I was only 23 years old. And when I went in there and I listened to the stories, they sounded just like mine. Still afraid to speak of my own. But I kept going, and I kept going. And I built up the courage to talk about my own story. I was being heard. But in a collection of people, our stories were the same. And then, like she said, the interviews, Marcus, with the Visiting Room Project, they came in, I was their first interview. When they stepped foot in the prison to do interviews, I was like, hey, me, I don't know what I'm signing up for, but yes. Not knowing the impact of that interview. And I didn't care who heard it, who saw it. I just wanted people to be educated by it. I wanted young girls not to follow my footsteps in prison. And I wanted to educate them, let them know that love is not abuse. That's right. Now that I know, because remember, I didn't know. And I acknowledge today that I am a survivor. And as a survivor, I advocate for young girls, women, and we left so many sisters who are just like us in prison, who need help. They have, just like people came in for us, we got to leave. Thank God we got to leave. But we left so many of our not biological sisters,
No.
but our prison sisters that we grew up with, just like our biological family. We left them there. And we want them to come out and experience what we're experiencing. Like coming here.
Yeah.
We are petrified. Everything's fast here.
Yeah.
But I want my sister who's still there, need somebody to come in there and help her with her case. To come out and experience this same thing. So, yes, the Visiting Room Project, they helped us so much. And not only did they help us get out, they're helping us take tiny steps in life. Because I've been gone almost 30 years, and Adosha been gone
24 and a
20.
half.
We're like babies out here.
Yeah.
But thank God for people like that that's telling us, hey, Sandra, this is the new water. Try it. That means so much to us. Sometimes I'll be wanting to cry, so I wait till I get back to the room and cry because we were drinking water that we didn't even know was clean or not.
No.
So there are other people like us that need your time, your investment, your heart to help them.
That's right. I want to turn it over to Jennifer and Lavina. I specifically have this question for you. Do you have anything to say about issues you are focusing on within Texas prisons and jails, such as issues with the heat, lack of heat or mental health care? Or
So-
lack of air conditioning because of the heat and mental health.
Yeah, most people don't know that about 70% of Texas prisons do not have temperature control. I was incarcerated almost 20 years at several facilities that didn't have air conditioning. One of our members in our Linus group, she remembers pulling a little sticky tape that they had put over the thermostat so that they couldn't see what the temperature was. It was at Lane Murray unit, and it was 135 degrees in the dorm. So many of incarcerated Texans are literally fighting for their lives. Last summer, we had so many deaths in our Texas prisons. In the state of Texas, the prison system is claiming that there have been 0 heat-related deaths since 2012 because they've been under several lawsuits. We all know that that's a lie. Several women that we knew passed away last summer. So it's been really hard during the summer months. Like these ladies have mentioned, that is family that we left behind.
That's right.
Those women raised me from the time I was 15, and they helped me survive. And so everything that I do out here is for them and for the formerly incarcerated women that I work with now. So, yeah.
To piggyback on what Jen said regarding the AC, I will say that, I'll never forget my first summer at the hobby unit. When I got there, I was already told by other people who were already incarcerated of how many people were dying because of the heat. I'll never forget, I was on the bottom bunk, and it was like mid-afternoon, and my cellie and I were asleep. And I woke up because I felt something wet on my face. And when I looked up, her hand was like hanging off of the top bunk, just hanging over. But sweat was dripping from her fingertips to my face. She was asleep, she didn't know, but for sweat to drip from your fingertips, you have to be really hot. Our cells, the walls are all cemented. And meanwhile, the dorm, if you could picture this room and where the DJ booth is like a picket where the officers sit and watch us, where they can see us. In that picket, you open that door, it is cold. I don't know how they do it. I never understood it. And the education building of the prison units that I was on, that's where the warden's office is and administrative staff is, that building is always AC. But on the same unit, no AC. That summer, my first summer there, 7 people were wheeled out and died because of the heat. People are literally being baked alive, burned alive because of the heat. So to speak of a solution, to me, this is just a simple, humane thing that shouldn't even need to be a discussion. It's really sad that it's even a discussion, but put AC in or a cooling system, something similar to what county jails have, something so that no one should have a drug crime or really an addiction crime and go to prison and die because of the heat and be murdered by the state of Texas. That should not be. But that's what's happening. And now we're at another summer. So this summer, because these bills have not passed legislation, we're approaching another summer where it'll be 125 degrees and hotter in the cells, and people will die again this summer, unfortunately. As far as the mental health, this is something that I'm really passionate about, mental health. And what I will say is that everyone that's in prison, at any prison, they've experienced some type of trauma. Most of them, the trauma happened in their childhood, for most of them. Most of us who've been in prison at one point in time, or even in a jail, the trauma started at a childhood, most often. To take people and put them in a cage with bars, as you would an animal at the zoo. It's the only place I know where living things are behind a cage, is in a zoo. So to take humans, put them behind a cage, humans that have been impacted by all sorts of trauma, you name it, people have gone through it and experienced it. put them in an environment that is hostile, where they're being treated inhumane conditions, and for how many years? I mean, whether it's 1 year, 6 months, or 20 years, that's irrelevant. That's going to speak to the amount of more trauma that they're also experiencing in there, and then release them on parole and want this law-abiding citizen that has changed. Meanwhile, the mental health was never addressed. But I always want to end with a solution. What if there was no need for jails? All of them. All of the bars were taken out and more funding was put into creating mental health places. Because really and truly, these are people that are sick. Hurt people really do hurt people, so hurt people the most and cause the most damage. So these are sick people, so what if we put them in a mental facility where there's a nurturing environment, right, with licensed mental health clinicians, and everyone that comes through that door, you have to engage in individual counseling weekly, 50-minute sessions, just like a normal counseling session. We're not going to cheat them just because this is an incarcerated individual. And group counseling. I bet we see a big change in the lower rate of recidivism and more people coming out of that space healed and, well, in a healing place. I believe healing is a lifetime thing. You don't just get to this. I don't believe it's an event that happens in you. But nonetheless, I believe that that would be we see a huge difference in the whole world if you started having mental health clinicians. Everyone is engaged in therapeutic and counseling and therapeutic relationships. They're not surrounded by guards with mace and guns, and all of that is taken away. We are surrounded by clinicians that want to help us, behavioral health experts, clinicians, and people of the like. Peer specialists, people with lived experience, okay? People with lived experience. Those are who are hired at facilities where people who do all kinds of criminal offenses that are sick go, and then they are there for a certain amount of time and they get what they need, and then afterwards, guess what? You already started to educate that person, so now when they leave this place, they're going to want to continue in their own healing journey, just as I didn't get that help in prison. It was afterwards. And it was the education, though, that helped me get that. If I wasn't in school for social work and learning about my mental health and all of that, what are the chances that I would have been so likely to be such an advocate for mental health or to even understand my own mental health? That has been greatly impacted by incarceration. So I'll digress and pass the mic, but I have a lot can go on literally for hours about mental health and incarceration because that's what impacted me a lot, and I see it being the core root of what is considered the criminal justice system. It is the root of it, I believe, is mental health that's not being addressed, it's being overlooked.
Absolutely. And we talk about on Rikers, 80% of the women who are on Rikers Island right now in New York City have some mental health diagnoses, or need some access to mental health services. And I loved how you talked about solutions. In New York City, taxpayers, all of us sitting in this room, spend $556,000 per year to detain or incarcerate one person on Rikers Island. I could put 63 people through my Alternatives to Incarceration program at Exodus, where they would get housing, they would get employment, they would not recidivate. So the money's there. It's politics, it's political will around shifting and reallocating and reinvesting that funding to communities and to solutions, because the system's not broken. It's designed to do exactly what it's doing, and they've been doing it for that long. And one final caveat, in New York State right now, treatment not jails legislation is about to hopefully be passed. It was put into the governor's budget, and that's exactly what it would do. It would provide people with disabilities, with mental illness, with substance use addictions into treatment in lieu of jail. It places the power in the hands of the clinicians over the judges. So that's something that I would love to see get passed in New York, and then expand that to a nationwide, because that's really what we all need.
So I'm sorry, I got to jump in on that. So as y'all know, my name is Skip, but what y'all don't know is I spent 25 years going in and out the criminal justice system. I started from the age of 17, and yeah, I know I look like I'm a day over 18, but I'm gonna be 58 this summer. I came home in my 40s, Every time I went to jail, I didn't do long time. I didn't do like a whole 25 WAP at one time. I was in there every year, and every year I was released. And every year I went in, I was addicted to drugs and suffering from an unchecked mental illness. Every time I went in, they didn't look at that. No, they wanted to put Skip up under the jail. So I feel like I put the first brick in the Rose M. Singer Center on Rikers Island, and now I'm going to tear it down.
That's right.
You know, but the fact of the matter is that I needed treatment. I needed support. And I didn't get it. And then you penalized me when one of the few chances you let me walk out of court. I'm a drug addict. You gave me a piece of paper. You didn't give me access to supportive treatments. You just gave me a piece of paper. Did you really think I was coming back? And then I got penalized for that. So I really want to emphasize what Kandra said. I am part of treatment, not jail. Treatment, not jail is going to remove the gatekeepers who tell the DAs who tell the judge that people like me with a record cannot go to treatment. But I'm the one who needs it. But you won't let me have it. And that's how we decarcerate. The jails are full of people with behavioral health concerns. Let's get them the support and the treatment they need, and we will decarcerate. And it will be less recidivism. And let me just jump down off my soapbox, but I could go on.
So I'm going to turn it over to Idoja and Star. Can you speak a little more about the change in administration in Louisiana, specifically with Governor Landry and his reentry policies? How do they make you feel?
Oh, couldn't wait for that question.
I don't like it.
I don't because I actually, Governor Bill Elvis is the one that signed my clemency. Where I thought I was going to die in prison, it didn't happen. I'm here. But I watched the next governor. And I'm not into all that, but I watched. And his platform was to undo everything Bill Elvis put in place. Bill Elvis was for second chances. This man wanted to unravel everything that we're trying to take it away. He want to bring back the lock him up,
Throw away the key.
bury the key mentality. No, because we're advocating for those we left behind. We're out here, we got a chance, so now we're trying. He started the second chance. We was part of that second chance, and we're advocating, trying to help whoever that we can get on board to help them. But Governor Landry,
Can I speak?
sure. I'm trying to control myself when I say he's
Okay.
trying to undo all of that. So,
What he's trying to bring back is the death penalty.
yeah.
He don't want anyone with life without parole out. He feel that now he's signing a paper where if you rape someone, you get your thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Cut it off.
And you know, I'm gonna go back to 2000 and I'm gonna say 3. It was a big old write-up in the paper about the death penalty. And the drug come from the Roman Catholic. And they was sending the drug over here. And they told them they was killing animals. All this was in the paper. They was killing animals. So they felt that we was animals that they was killing. And they told them they would never get that drug again. Never. And to this day, they still can't get that drug. They mixing drugs to kill people that's on death row. Okay, the people on death row trying to get life without parole so they could demolish the death penalty. And the ones that's got life without parole, get them life with parole. They have people been up in there for like 30 years with no reports.
40, 50,
60,
yeah.
no reports. And they get denied every time. You know, and I feel like the governor now, he should not appeased his friends. That's what I'm gonna say. Because it's all about making a dollar now. He not trying to get us a second chance.
He said if you go to jail now, you stay in jail. No outlet. He's going through the court system to stop all clemencies, all paperwork that's being filed back to the courts. He's trying to get in there and stop that. So if you go in, it's like the roaches. You check in,
can't
you ain't
check
checking
out.
out. Now. That's horrible.
And just think about, I have a brother, he been incarcerated 20 years. Don't have one report. He cooked for the warden and still can't get a clemency. And I fight so hard for him. I go speak to the DA on his behalf. I go to the courthouse. I file his paperwork. Because I feel he did his crime. Yes, he did. But he deserved a second chance. Everybody deserves a second chance. I sit in jail for 24 and a half years. Yes, I committed my crime, but I was wrongfully convicted. And it hurted me. It hurted me to a point where I thought I was going to lose it. I gave up everything. My family, my friends. The only person that I held on to was God. And I felt like he was the only person that was going to help me. And he did. He sent people towards me to help me. Just like y'all sitting in this audience today, y'all here because y'all want to help. Y'all not sitting here just to hear us talk. Y'all want to help us. And it's not just me talking, it's the whole panelists. And I feel like I'm talking for the whole panelists. Because they have people up in there that's mentally ill. They have people up in there that's rich and still can't get out of prison. They got drug addiction. They got sex offenders. But who am I to judge them? I'm not God. So they deserve a second chance. And our governor don't need to be in the seat.
It makes you think when she said that it brings you to a brink of not caring about yourself because there's no outlet. Guilty. Guilty. When you don't have an outlet, your mind does things to make you think, why am I even here on this earth? Let me make it easy. That's where your mind goes. And with this in place, with this new governor, imagine what they thinking on the inside right now. Because at one point, it was students, people, organizations coming in droves to help those who couldn't help themselves. I saw it. We witnessed it.
Yes.
We were part of it.
Yeah.
But now it's like this big gate has been closed forever. Imagine that person on the other side that saw all this, and now there's no hope for me. They back to that, there's no hope for me state, mentally. And where does that drive them? Where does that leave them?
I think we keep hearing this common thread of state-sanctioned violence, state-sanctioned murder. We talk about it all the time. We talk a lot about the 13th Amendment and how when slavery was abolished, it was unless you were convicted of a crime. And so if you are in jail or prison, you're a number, you're property. They do not consider you human. They feed you food that has a less grade of meat than we feed our dogs in dog food. Like, this is the reality of how it is when you were inside. So I see that commonality and just, you know, this fight, it's really reimagining and restructuring what we could have, because these systems need to just be dismantled, right, and abolished. And I was gonna go, well, look, before Skip jumps in, because we're running a little on time, and we got two more, I got two more questions I really want to get to. But Tamika and Skip, real quick, do you think Rikers will close by 2027? And I know this is gonna be a long answer, so we just got a little bit of time, okay?
Listen,
Here comes Skip.
I'm gonna be real. Do I think it's gonna close? Yes, because I'm gonna make it close. That's all I can say. On Monday, I sit for a confirmation hearing to sit on the Board of Corrections.
That's right, baby.
Rikers is going to put me on the Board of Correction, and y'all might as well just dismantle the island brick by brick now. Because at the end of the day, it does nothing. It traumatizes, it harms. We are faced with collateral consequences. As someone who is directly impacted, I can't begin to tell you about the collateral consequences. I am an executive director of a nonprofit. I drive a brand new 22 car. I take cruises with my spouse every year. But yet, if I go down in the train and swipe a Metro card that I done paid money for and it doesn't work, and I turn around and see other people walking through that turnstile, and I say, well, let me just mosey along because I got to get to an important appointment and I'm an important person. And for some reason, the cops look at me and arrest me, I'm going to jail. Regardless of the fact that I'm a responsible citizen, regardless of the fact that I ain't been to jail since 2007, I'm still going straight to jail. Regardless of the fact that I got money and plastic on me, they're sending me up under the jail because of my record. We need to stop this. And the first thing we need to do is dismantle that harmful institution that birthed us. I grew up on Rikers Island. I went there at 17. Just like my colleague said, the women on Rikers Island raised me. I came home for the last time in my early 40s. And we talking year after year, I was there. And I have to admit, I learned how to hustle. I learned resilience. I learned independence. I learned how to make a dime out of a penny. And I've carried those lessons with me. But what I also learned is that I am validated and I am eligible for a second chance. And I am the embodiment of second chances. I am a certified peer. I provide mentorship and support to those who have been there. And why do I do that? Because I need you to look at me and understand me, the crackhead who thought I could smoke crack from here to Columbia and back, is now an upright citizen. And guess what? If I can do it, you can. And that's how we do this. So is Rikers Island going to close? Hell yeah, right under the boot of my shoe.
So, I don't know. I don't think I have quite the same optimism as Skip does. I fought on the Close Rikers campaign for many of years, and I'm looking at life after the first Close Rikers campaign and after Free New York with the bill reform and stuff, and I'm looking at the raise your age, and I'm looking at the legalization of marijuana, and then I'm looking at today, and I'm like, wow, so they legalized marijuana, and people who were most impacted by marijuana, and those families were supposed to be the ones who was able to have these stores and all this other stuff, and they have all these different requirements and restrictions and stuff, so now they gotta be smoke shops, because once they legalized marijuana, you needed to be able to have a place for everybody to be able to purchase it from. So they have all these smoke shops that go up all over the place, and they've been up for the last 2 years, and now all of a sudden we just have all these raids that are going on where they're running in every single smoke shop, and it doesn't matter if you're working in the shop or if you're purchasing, if you're a customer, they're throwing you on the floor, right? So I feel like they just are finding more ways to continue arresting people, that way they don't have to close it, right? Like, the system is, like she said, is doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is enslave us, because that's the only way we can be enslaved. Mm-hmm. So they sit here, raise the age, but I work for a youth detention house. We have 12 to 19-year-olds in there, and we get 2 to 3 of them a day. So, right, they're still arresting these young kids. They're still arresting people for the smallest things and for the biggest things. But we're not going to talk about the biggest things, right, because maybe they need to be behind bars, and we need to find out why they need to be there or where they need to go. But when we were dismantling the system and we were coming up with different ways to be able to keep people either free or give them alternative to incarceration programs and stuff, we still have the powers that be that's against us, right? Because they still need a paycheck. They still want to be able to go on these nice vacations and take their kids and do all these lavish things and stuff with them. So how are they going to do that if they don't have us there? So yes, I believe that with our foot on their necks, at some point it's going to close. Do I see it happening in the next, 2.5 years? Because we're in the middle of 2024, so the next 2.5 years, I hope so, but there's so many things that are in play that are still against us, right? Because there's still some things that need to go into play. We still have to get people to stop committing crimes for whatever reason that is, right? So we have to find out why they're committing them, right? And of course, some of them are societal type crimes. They're crimes to help them to live and stuff, but society has to do something so these people aren't committing crimes. And again, going to Rikers is just a detention center. So if there's no programs in the state prison where people are doing times, there's nothing in this detention center that's going to help a person while they're fighting the case, going back to court anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of years. There's nothing there that's going to stop them from coming in right now, right? So how do we close it, right? What else do we need to do to get this mayor of ours and this governor of ours to understand that this is bigger than what they think it is and what they say it is? Like, how do we get them to see and understand that this is very necessary, but then how do we get us to understand that we need a change? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just society, it's not just the lawmakers, it's us too.
I totally agree with that. You know, as a formerly incarcerated woman trying to get housing, everyone was like, oh, you know, you can do this, but you can't live in my neighborhood. Didn't matter if I had a master's degree, didn't matter that I'm a VP. You know, we want you to, live, but you can't live here. And that's what we hear a lot, is that NIMBYism. And I just want to give one more caveat to voting. We have the power to vote to get the next mayor into office. I'll just put that out, a caveat. And we also have the power, at least in New York, and I know it might be different in other states, but here in New York, as directly impacted people, we have the power to run for elected offices and to get those elected offices. So we also need communities to support that, because, when we are running, it's important to change. And
Skip, I'll set you free.
That's right. I'm going to be her campaign manager.
About 5 years, run for Skip. Vote for Skip.
Final question. We only have a few minutes for it, because I definitely want to give the audience some time to do a Q&A. But when hearing each other's experiences, what struck you as something that you share across state lines, and what's something that struck you as different?
I wanted to be heard. I wanted someone to hear my story. Well, y'all haven't heard it, but, they have a lot of people that heard my story. I don't want anyone to look at me any different, but I want my story to touch someone's heart. Because being a survivor of domestic violence is hard. It's so hard, I couldn't even much forgive myself. Sometimes I couldn't even much talk to my kids because I felt like I let them down. I know I let my mom down. I let her down. And the day that I went back to court, and the lady said, the judge said, I need Ms. Robinson to get on the phone so I could talk to her, because this is my courtroom and I'm going to do what I want to do. And I signed for 24 years. But she did what she wanted to do. My mama said, I can't sit up in here because I'm going to die. My mom is 74 years old. She said, I can't sit up in here because I'm going to die. And she walked out the courtroom. The judge gave me, the judge gave me 30 years. My lawyers already told me that she was unpredictable. Don't sit there and feel like she gonna be on your side. But in a way, she went to my side, then she waved. Then she waved again. Then she kept waving. So I was like, Lord, just keep her in one spot. Put her on the boat with you and just calm the waters. I want someone to hear my story and feel it, because my story is so, so powerful.
I think hearing stories in general, because if you run across somebody, you're going to hear their story, or they're going to tell you the story, or if you just listen to somebody that might be going through issues of mental illness, that might be going through the break of suicide, or going to jail, or on a drug problem, or getting jumped on. I think that if people would stop and pay attention and listen, you just might hear that cry. So I think the commonality here is to listen when people are talking. Or, it's not my problem. Oh, that's you if you want to use drugs. They're going to jail again. Don't call me. Are we listening there? No. I think the thread is listening. Listening to when these people, they got people all around the world that just want to be heard. They want to be heard.
I think what I also hear is, sometimes in Texas, I always had this vision that the federal system was different. It was different in New York. We went through the same things, like, when we were talking earlier, just our daily living in there and the type of community that we created, like those are, like, there's this shared story together. And I think it's also, I'm hearing, like, we don't want to leave them behind, and we want to make sure no other woman or girl ends up in that system, right? So I also hear these common threads of community and always reaching back.
Speaking as a qualitative researcher, it is not the numbers. It is not the quantitative data, which is how many numbers. It is the qualitative data, which is the story behind. I don't need to know that 50 people successfully completed a program. I need to know why, because then I need to take that and use that in applied research and build similar programs along those same lines. And storytelling and narratives are what's telling us the why, not the how many. And so for so long, we have just relied on how many. But if we start looking at the why, we can begin to build effective policies that are impactful and that they do work. We can't do it without it. And how do we do that? We take our lived experience, which is our stories, and we translate them to professional lived expertise. And we blast it so that everybody hears and understands exactly what is happening, what is going on. And I was real quick with that one, right?
And I just want to say, unfortunately, because this is an unfortunate thing, unfortunately, we actually feel and go through the same things, which is what fortunately makes us the strong people that we've become. I travel around and I speak at other prisons in different states, but I'm sitting up here, so I'm not actually seeing what's going on. So when I go into these other facilities and I'm not being escorted when I walk through as a civilian and I'm seeing the people that are incarcerated kind of just walking around, I'm like, wow, we can't do this in New York. Oh man, maybe we should have been locked out over here. But now I'm sitting here on this panel, which is my first all-female, all-woman panel. I'm normally on a panel where it's like a whole bunch of guys.
You deserve to be here.
So I'm normally in a panel where it's a whole bunch of guys, and I'm the person in the room that's just making sure that the voices for the women are getting heard. So now I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, we're not in this by ourselves. Which is the unfortunate thing, right? Because I would hope that it would be an isolated incident. I would hope that it was just New York State, but it's not. It's obviously all of the states, right? And it probably goes beyond the United States. It probably goes into the other countries as well. So to know that us women are not in this by ourselves, and that although, because a lot of times women don't come across as team players. We're often trying to compete with each other because we just need a spot, right? So we're often bringing each other down. And there's not really much encouragement and stuff. When you look at women as a whole, we're like crabs in the barrel. So to be able to see that there are women who are working together separately but together because, of course, of our locations for the same cause, for the same fight, it kind of relieves me a little bit because I felt like I was the only person that was trying to get our voices heard. So this was very surprising to me. I've been doing panels for 7 years. And when I say I'm really, and I don't care what state it is and what capacity it was, I was like the only female, possibly another one, and it'd be about 4 guys. Wow. So thank you. I'm happy. I thank the Rikers Public Memory Project. I think I don't want to start naming them wrong, but I think everyone that came together that's doing this, that's doing the work. I think everybody that's here, that's listening to those of us that's doing the work, and I'm sure a lot of y'all in the audience are doing it as well. That's why you're here, because you wouldn't be here if you wasn't doing the work already. So I just thank everybody for even allowing this to take place so we can see the similarities, because now we know that there's even more work to do, because it's not just about here in New York, it's not just about in Louisiana, it's not just about in Texas, it's about all of us together in this. So thank you.
Lavina, did you?
Yes. So one thing I think that's shared across state lines is connection. The connection that, we, like someone said earlier, that women form a community wherever they are. And that's true, so there was, we've all been incarcerated at one time or another, and we've all found a place to connect afterwards. And that got us on this platform, and so I'm thankful for that. Thank you so much, Texas After Violence Project and Rikers Memory Project, and all of the organizations that are coming together to amplify things that need to be heard regarding the criminal system and things that matter to us, our experiences, that giving us a space to share. So that's what I see, that's the commonality across state lines. And the difference, I think, all of our traumas are different. Each of us have a different background of traumas, but they all landed us in the same place. So that's something that's shared, but also something that's different. But it just goes to show that trauma really does, everybody responds to traumatic events in a different way, and we're no different, so.
Thank you for that. So we definitely want to open it up for the audience if there's any questions from the audience. Also, as we're answering, if you have any calls to action that you want to give off, I do want to just give a shout out. It's budget advocacy season right now, and you all could just email your council members or the mayor and say, hey, why aren't we investing in these community solutions? You don't even have to know all the details. You just got to say, hey, why are we not doing this when we could be, right? And it's really reallocating funding for good. So I'm going to pass it to you first.
Hi, excellent panel. Not especially, but especially also to Idoja and Miss Starr. I'm from New Orleans, so that's why. I have no favoritism. That's okay. I love all of you. That said, I'm really interested, since we've now verified that this is a nationwide issue, right? Maybe perhaps international. What would it look like to build solidarity or organize formerly incarcerated folks? Sorry, I'm dreaming. Maybe I shouldn't talk tactics, but organize formerly incarcerated folks as a threat. How could we build capacity to be a threat to the system across the nation? What would that look like? What would that look like between our organizations? That's what I'm curious. Plus maybe one in Philly. I'm not sure. There might be an archive starting in Philly. I don't know. But yeah.
I'll take just have a brief response to that, and I'll say it could start with education and some training, specialized training, specifically on trauma. So many of us, people like myself, experience prison or jail or incarceration at whatever level, and really don't get the knowledge, the information that we need to be able to grow from it, heal from it, and so I think that's empowering. If we could get educated, people that are just like us, that have been impacted, family members even, because that's an experience in itself for the families. My second incarceration when I went to prison, my grandmother took that very, very hard on her. And so families are definitely impacted. So I would think education, there being a space where we could get educated about our own mental health. Like, it took therapy for me to get educated about anxiety and depression and things that I was experiencing, and to be able to make sense of it, to connect things to different traumas I've experienced. So sometimes when you just don't know, when you're ignorant to some things, you'll stay in a place where you're stuck in life. But once knowledge really is power. So I say educating us about things that we've experienced would be a great start for that.
I would say, and this might be asking a little too much, but I would say because there's about, or have been about 2.2 million people incarcerated across the United States, I would say it looks like maybe half of that walking and marching on Washington, so that way they really can see us in the drones and hear our voices, right? The same way for like the civil rights movements and the Million Man March and all this other stuff, right? Because, we're doing it at the state levels, we're in our states and stuff, but let's go to the actual capital, because we're talking about our own state capitals. We go to Albany here, you guys, what's Baton Rouge is in Louisiana, right? But Houston, but now, if we're at D.C., we're sitting there with whichever president it is, or lack of president who just has the title that's there, and everybody else. I think if we're sitting out there and we're being heard, and there's stories are being told, and there's stuff plastered all over DC where it cannot be ignored, it cannot go unnoticed, I think that'll be a time where nationally we'll be able to get what we want nationally. So because we just jumped to a huge platform, being that we're no longer just locally. So yeah, March on Washington, 2 million strong would be great. Families of incarcerated people, the incarcerated people, the people that worked in the system that no longer agree with the system, people that have worked there in the past. Like, there's a lot of people. I have a brother-in-law who's a corrections officer on Rikers, and he's like, they need to close this place. He tries not to go to work as much as possible. So it's like, it's not just those of us that were detained or incarcerated that feels like the system isn't working. People that work the system feel like it's not working. So if we all come together and we all talk to the powers that be, I think we can do something.
I think
Well-
I'm sorry.
Well, in Louisiana, we need to be more educating on voting,
Right.
because that's the key, voting. It could have 1 million of civilians and 250,000 to vote, but what happened to the rest of them? That's how we get these bad politicians in. We need to educate us more on voting. I never voted in my life, but I'm striving. When my 5 years come, I'm gonna be first on the poll, because I want them to educate me on how to vote, because my vote count. Everybody vote count. And that's what people need to know. Your vote do count. If you don't vote, don't voice your opinion.
Right, comment.
Okay, now if you vote, you can scream to the top of your lungs and tell us where to go from there, because you did your part. And I want to do my part. And I can't wait till my 5 years up.
Yeah, in New York State, if you're on parole, you can vote, but in most states you can't. And that's something that only recently we were able to change in New York State. For a long time you weren't. And there's even states that if you have a conviction, you are banned from voting for life. So, and Jen, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was going to add, I think there's a responsibility, a growing responsibility with community-based archives to not just hold stories, but to activate them, right? So, I remember the first time I shared my story with Murphy at Texas After Violence Project. It was the first time I truly was heard without a motive, without a journalist trying to extract something. And what we hear from our community is, okay, you got my story, what are you going to do with it now? right? Like, it's not just archiving, it's activating, and it's building a intentional community of narrators, right? Like, this is now a community of narrators. So looking in your archive as a community-based archive and really being intentional about creating a community with those narratives and keeping them involved and doing things like education, voter education, trainings on how to organize, and then connecting nationally.
And that's why philanthropy also needs to fund community archives, all right? Just want to give them another shout out. They need to start putting the money where their mouth is. Any other questions from the audience? Going once, going twice. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I want us all to stand up and give a big round of applause for these amazing panelists. And Regina, come on up. Come on up, Andrea, come on. No, come on. And because of the work that Regina and Andrea and everyone does, these archives will be activated, just as Jen said. So we will be back. You will see us in other capacities because we will be activating them. And thank you all and have an amazing evening. Oh. There's a survey. Oh, there's a survey. I didn't know that there was a survey. And I still don't have. So survey, if you go to this QR code right here, you can take out your little phone. Hit here. Oh, it's also on here as well. So if you need to do that, please fill out the survey for us. Thank you so much, and I apologize. That was not on my paper.
And I also want to issue a big shout out and thank you to our moderator, Ms. Kandra Clark, who pulled the very best out of us. Thank you so much for your graciousness and your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody take pictures of us. Somebody take pictures of us.
We got to take pictures.
Take pictures of us.